Hey everybody, Victor Lucier from the Brooklyn Fishing Club here. Today I have some very special guests with me. They aren't actually in the studio, but they have called in from across the planet. We have Peter Perch on the line from Amsterdam. We have Dylan from Bold Coast Burns, who's calling in from Maine. And we have Haynes, who's calling in from North Carolina. Today we're going to be focused on talking about the topic of fish art and the different mediums that it comes in. With that being said, my first guest, Peter Perch, is somebody who I've known for quite some time. We met through Instagram. I noticed that he had an incredible ability to paint and draw fish. And when I was starting out the club, I was thinking about putting out, clothing. And he was the first artist I ever reached out to collaborate with. And we've kind of grown together as brands. I know a lot of the first work that he did where he was doing it professionally, and Peter, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of that first work was with the BFC, and then you definitely got some looks from some other companies after you did some work with us, and after people saw the art that you did for us, they definitely started buying our clothing. And we've done probably, 6 different designs that we put out by now. But yeah, how you doing today, man? How's it on the other side of the pond?
Good. I just came home from fishing. I'm in Turkey now, visiting my in-laws for the holiday season, and I've been working on a new T-shirt design for Brooklyn Fishing Club.
Oh yeah,
You may have heard of them.
What is it? What does it entail? What's in the design?
It's going to be a falling toe talk bomb that's going to nuke the reef.
Yeah.
So soon you can wear a nuke the reef T-shirt.
Yeah, so we're gonna have nuke the reef down the sleeves in nice lettering, and then we're gonna have a tautog or blackfish with a bomb strapped to it, getting dropped down to the reef. We use this term nuke the reef. Some people might take offense to it, but it's really just a joke that we have in the club. Like whenever we go bottom fishing and we're trying to catch sea bass or anything that's hanging out on the bottom along any structure, we say that we want to nuke the reef because we want to catch a lot of fish. But as Mishka Bobishka said, we don't have any nuclear weapons. So anyway, Peter, tell me a little bit about how the fish art life chose you.
So I actually found out, my mom found out that I started doing it when I was 8. She found this little drawing of a creature that I got from the canal behind my parents' farm. And it's like this really detailed drawing of a little fish, and with like a little determination text next to it. And so everybody figured that I would be a biologist at some point. But I was shit at school. So during high school was not a success, got kicked out of school, blah, blah, blah. Went to a vocational school, learned how to screen print. And then one of the teachers said, like, dude, you should go to art school. It looks like the way to go for you. Then I went to art school. And after a 10-year career freelancing in advertising as a designer and illustrator, I just found out that doing any work not related to fish, it makes me fucking unhappy. So I decided to go back to where I came from as an 8-year-old kid, drawing stuff that I fished up from the canal. That's the only thing that makes me happy. And I think that's what people pick up in my work. Like my love for the subject, and also that I come from a world of angling, so people understand that the art that I make is coming from a brother in arms. So I think that's what That's what people pick up in my work.
You've done quite a bit of murals too, right?
Yeah, I did, and yeah, I did a lot of commercial work in the past, and I always drew fish for myself. It was like a love thing,
Uh huh.
and I never figured that anybody would be interested in it actually.
And then what happened?
Yeah, and then I uh, I I went to this 2 week painting frenzy, and I had this like big stack of painted fish, and I was like, why don't I do anything with this? And so I started an Instagram, and people started liking and following, and then I realized like, wow, people actually like what I do, and it all grew from there. Then you came along, and I started doing T-shirts, and then actually it landed me a job in Japan doing Brooklyn Fishing Club T-shirts. I started doing packaging for Huerco. My friends from Huerco, who I will visit in February for an art exhibition at the fishing show in Osaka. They got interested in me through the work I did for Brooklyn Fishing Club, and I designed the packaging for the travel rod packaging,
Yeah, it came out really nice.
and yeah, it was really nice. And we've been collaborating ever since. I don't even remember how we started talking to each other. Actually,
Yeah, I think
I
it
think you
had.
hit me up on Instagram.
Yeah, it was all through the gram, and then we Skyped, and then I came and visited you with my fiance, and we stayed with you and your wife, and we had some fun. And then I came back again last summer, and we went to the urban fishing convention together, which was a blast.
Yeah, that
Um,
was really good.
so tell me a little bit about like the process of like when you sit down with a blank canvas, like how does it start?
So it never starts with a blank canvas. It always starts in a sketchbook.
Okay.
Like people that follow me on Instagram, they know that I'm a serial sketcher. I fill up multiple sketchbooks a year, and that's how everything starts going for me.
Yeah.
I have an idea. I start sketching it out, um, and depending on that, I find what the medium for is. So it could be a T-shirt. I do my own screen print. It could be a mural. Could be anything, but it always starts in my sketchbook. My
Yeah,
sketchbook is my extended brain.
yeah, I've had the privilege of looking through your sketchbooks, and they're amazing. A lot of stuff in there that nobody has ever even seen that definitely needs to be released at some point. I really like that one drawing that you have with the squid that says "Trust no one" and it's eating like a sardine or something. Love that one.
Yeah.
So fish are so inspiring. You know, what's your favorite fish to turn into art and why?
Well, Peter Perch. What do you think?
I'm
Perch is my
guessing
favorite
it's a bluefish.
fish. Yeah. No, man. My like with most people, my grandfather got me turned me onto fishing,
Uh huh.
and he's from a little island which is about half an hour outside of Amsterdam called Marken. And when we would visit the island, we would walk around, and he would always start talking about the past. And he was an orphan, pretty young. Uh, he's from a seagoing family, and his father died young, and his mother and brothers died young. And he always used to tell me about them, but the stories always started with stories about fishing. So fish has always been this like magical gateway for me. And the fish that he always started talking about was catching a perch with his baby brother,
Hmm.
and uh, that's that's how this love for perch was born. And I actually after he died, I had this recurring dream. Ever when I'm in stressful moments, my grandfather floats around my head, talking to me in the shape of a perch.
True story.
And true story. Every major uh, stressful moment in my life was followed by a dream of a floating perch consulting me with the voice of my grandfather.
It's amazing.
So that's where the whole perch thing is coming from.
Yeah, I'm sure he's.
And apart from that, perch is still a beautiful fish.
It
A
is.
to catch, B to really get lost in the detail. That is beautiful. The color scheme is beautiful. The stripes are beautiful.
What?
Yeah,
What?
you can find.
What about let's you mind telling that story real quick before we move on to the next guest about when you took me fishing by that wind farm?
Ah, the spot that you were not supposed to talk about, that it was the wind farm.
We'll bleep it out. We'll bleep out that part.
No, no, no. Leave it in. Leave it in. Um,
Hey,
yeah.
listen,
You want
you
to?
gotta have some
What?
type of skill to even catch a fish over there. So you could show somebody that spot, but if they don't know how to fish, they're not gonna be catching anything but rocks.
No, it's like super snaggy. You need to really learn how to do it, and I think it took you some time to actually get the hang of it, right?
Definitely. I mean, we walked around that island twice. Um, and yeah, there were so many rocks around. I didn't want to get snagged, so I was being a little hesitant with how deep I let my bait drop. And also, those lures we were using were like $12 each. And I only had two, so I wasn't trying to lose one of them. But I think after you caught that first one, that was when it changed up.
Yeah, it was really fun because I really thought you. Yeah, I saw that you got the hang of it, and you got like because the trick is to have like a perfect glide in the water to follow there's like a very strong current going out. You need to drop like a 7 gram lure in the water and let it fly down to the bottom, and then near the bottom you get this like massive hammering strike. And at some point, I get the first catch. I put you up to the spot, and I say like fish here. And
Well,
you get the
well,
hang
well.
of it.
Let's hold on a sec. You said let's go that way. You didn't say fish here. You said let's go down that way. It looks fishier, and you went down, and I said I'm going to stay here for a sec.
Sorry,
Sorry, I'm just for the record. I'm just want the
just for the
story
record.
want the story to be accurate. So I sat down. I looked at the
No,
water, read the water for 5 minutes, and just tried to do everything I would do with striped bass. And yeah, I connected with a really nice sea bass. You guys also call them
fuck,
labrax.
it fucking hammered it, man.
It
It
w-
was so fun to see because I saw your rod go like bam,
yeah,
and I
that's
see
my freshwater rod too that I use in like Prospect
and
Park,
I saw
Central
you
Park.
looking at me like, is this real?
Yeah, at first I thought it was a rock until it started peeling drag. But yeah, that was a nice fish, man. That's one of the proudest catches of my whole career so far because I was definitely on the away field, and it was a nice fish, right? I mean, from what you told me, like they don't get that much bigger than that anymore.
No, no, it's like striped bass, man. Overfishing.
Yeah. Real quick, can you and I know we're on the topic of fish art, and I know the other guys are waiting for their turn to talk. But real quick, can you explain the situation with so in America we call them bronzino, you guys call them sea bass or labrax. What is the situation going on with the rec fishing versus the commercial fishing in terms of that fish right now?
So we had a funny situation that sports fishermen were not allowed to take a fish home, but the commercials were allowed to keep on fishing because the commercials were for some reason the fishing commercial fishing lobby uh, made everybody in Brussels believe that the sports fishermen were damaging the fish, and that we should not be able to take fish home. Uh, and guess what? Everybody stopped taking fish home, and it still went down like crazy
Yeah, because
because the
yeah,
commercial fishermen are just completely irresponsibly um, fishing mating grounds, fishing at the wrong time of the year,
like when they're spawning.
right when oh, no on spawning grounds,
Yeah,
trailering on spawning grounds.
so they're dragging nets along the spawning grounds when all the big fish are there.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah, yeah,
but we couldn't take home a nice legal bronzino to eat for dinner.
yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty frustrating. But I was glad to see that fish swim away. It was good, but
So,
I would have enjoyed it for dinner though. But
no, but I think it's. I like to think that it's bigger, and we're gonna catch it next year.
yeah, you will. No, I'll be back. I'll be back for sure. Um, thank you, Peter. I'm just gonna put you on hold for a sec, and then we'll all gather back around to talk as a group. The next guest I have is Dylan from Bold Coast Burns. Bold Coast Burns is an awesome company that I've had the privilege of watching grow from a smaller brand to now a pretty well-known brand across the U.S. and the world. I first found Dylan, like most of the people I find on Instagram. I noticed that he was making this amazing artwork out of wood, using pyrography to burn fish designs into wood. And I requested, I think this was like two years ago, Dylan, maybe 3 years ago.
Sounds about right. Yeah.
Yeah, I requested, and at that point it was the biggest piece you'd done to date, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
I asked for a 6-foot wahoo because the wahoo is my favorite fish, and told my fiance I was getting myself a small piece of fish art for my birthday, and then a 6-foot wahoo showed up at the door, and she almost had a heart attack. But then when she saw how beautiful it was, she didn't really mind, and now it's a major piece of artwork in our apartment, and I draw a lot of inspiration from it on the daily basis. So Dylan, how you doing, man? How's the weather up there in Maine today? You getting snow?
Well, I'm doing well, but I'm looking out the window right now, and it was snow this morning, and now unfortunately it's pouring rain. So
Yeah, it's pouring.
a good
here in
day to
Brooklyn.
be inside. Yeah, it's pretty. Yeah, we're similar climate, but it's good day to be inside doing this and creating some art. So.
Definitely. What are you working on today?
Well, I'm kind of just, most of my work is, they're custom orders. So I'm kind of just starting out I know it's not the new year yet, but now that the holidays have kind of passed, it's kind of on to a new set. So I'm just kind of working on some new species, and, it's, keeping me busy.
I've noticed that you do a lot of saltwater, but have you done some freshwater work too?
Yeah, I've been doing more and more freshwater. I mean, it's my inspiration and most of my experience is saltwater. My passion is spearfishing and rod and reel, but typically these days it's more diving. And but with social media, it's just crazy how that you can access the whole world. I mean, when I was listening to Peter talk, it's just, I found him through Instagram, and I've been following along with his work, and I would never, if this was 10 years ago, I would have, or even, 5 years ago, I would have never known that he existed. I'd be kind of in the New England, Northeast US bubble here.
Yep.
But yeah, it's amazing. You really can reach everyone, and they can find you if they're looking.
So why do you enjoy spearfishing a little bit more than rod and reel fishing?
Well, I love how immersive it is. It's just in a different way. I mean, I just love being underwater, and there's just a whole nother element of there's a whole nother sport of free diving that kind of comes together with fishing when you're spearfishing, and you spend so much time working on your breath holds and just the safety of it, and developing dive buddies that you feel safe with, and it's just it's a different sport. And I still do rod and reel fish quite a bit because that's my dad's passion, and but it's just a different way to interact. It's it's highly selective. I mean, granted, when you shoot, you shoot to kill, but
yeah,
you're only taking that one fish that you're targeting,
yeah,
and you're not really bothering anything else that's around you.
Do you think that being in the water with the fish and seeing them in their natural element, do you think that influences your art?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I mean, I feel so kind of re-inspired. Sometimes it's like when you're, I'm fortunate to be able to do, something I'm passionate about for a living, but, I always feel so much more, everything's reinvigorated when I go spend, even just a few hours, whether, after work, I pop in the water for a couple hours and just get a quick dive in. It's just when you're down there and you see that, it just reminds you like why, you love interacting with this community of people outside of the water and, the environment in the water. It's just, it really does come full circle. It's, I think any fish artist kind of has that, who has like a focus on the marine environment has that same connection. It's like your hobbies and your work and everything kind of, it's all connected. So
yeah. So how do you get into this? I mean, how do you start becoming a pyrographic fish artist? Because there aren't too many of you guys out there.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are more people doing it. Pyrography or wood burning or whatever you want to call it. I mean, it's been around.
I'm sorry. Am I saying it wrong? Is it pyrography or what did you say?
Pyrography. I mean,
pyrography. Okay.
The word itself is kind of a tongue twister, but yeah, and it's one of the oldest forms of art that people were writing with ashes and heating up hot metal and burning it medieval time. I mean, it's been around it's just such an old form of art, and now it's definitely I'm kind of pushing it in a new direction, I think, and there are some other artists doing the same thing, but it's I've been drawing fish my whole life, and I've just been pushing it kind of as a hobby on the side. And then I went to school for graphic design, and I afterwards I was just spending so many hours behind the computer every day trying to carve out a space as a graphic designer, and I just always kept coming. It's funny listening to Peter because it's such a similar story for me. School was always really challenging, and I always just came back to fish and drawing fish. And then I remember one year about 5 years ago, I got a wood burning pen for the holidays, I think, or something. And I just started, I had these couple slabs of wood. I started playing around with it, and it was right about the time that even though I was kind of resistant to it, I got an Instagram account, and just exactly what Peter was saying too. It's like you start posting, you're able to interact with all these people that would have never found you before, and then it just over the past 5 years, it's I think 2 years ago I was able to kind of start doing it full time, and the fishing community is just so fanatical about fish. It's like it's a niche, it really is, and people when they're not fishing, they're thinking about fishing. So.
Absolutely, I know I am thinking about it right now. So if you don't mind me asking about specifically like that wahoo, what was the process that went into that 6-foot wahoo that you made me? Like, how did you select the wood? Like walk me through the whole thing.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess, I started with a wood burning pen, and I've always wanted to go big. And something that bothered me when I was creating all these fish, they were well, most of my pieces were only with a wood burning pen. The biggest thing I could create was, without spending months and months and months on it, was something that's, maybe 12 by 12, or you could go a little bigger, 20 inches or something. And it always frustrated me that I'd be trying to create a bluefin tuna that, could be 5, even 6 feet long. And I couldn't create them to scale with the tools that I had. So I started, thinking of other ways to generate heat or flame, or, and I remember I went to the hardware store and I just bought every blowtorch I could find. And then I remember I started looking around the kitchen and kind of had different tools. I started using spatulas and forks to create different patterns by shielding the flame. And that was kind of when I made that Wahoo for you. That was kind of really when I had just kind of gotten going with that, and just a lot of experimentation. So I used a torch primarily for your piece, and then I do use a wood burning pen for certain areas where I need to achieve more detail. But it's, there's no color involved in my work. It's all, I'm actually, I think I might be slightly colorblind. So I work with depth and texture, and that's just, it's just something a little different, and that's where I feel comfortable.
So
torches primarily.
How did you cut out so like you got a piece of wood? Was it just a piece of lumber, or like where did you find it? How did you come about that?
Yeah, I believe yours, so long ago now, but most of my work now, and I think when I did yours, or it's, I work on poplar primarily because it's a nice, lighter colored wood it allows for a lot of kind of freedom, and you can really get a large spectrum of tones. And so I usually I glue sometimes 2 or 3 pieces of wood together and really make the seam so you can't, you really would think it's all one piece of wood when I'm done with it.
I didn't know that fish had multiple layers.
So wow. I glue them together and just do a big glue up, and sand it all down, and it's, it looks like one piece of wood, and try to match the grain the best I can. And then after that, I usually I'll sketch the fish out, and then I'll burn it, and then I'll cut around the edges, which actually recently I've been cutting them out first and then burning, and I haven't really figured out, that's somewhere where, there really aren't resources for it. I'm just kind of trying to figure it out on my own. So, I don't know what the best method is yet, but then I'll cut them out, and then I burn the edges so that I get a nice dark edge all the way around. It kind of creates almost like a little like float frame or something off the wall. And then I the second kind of part of the whole process is I have a whole separate space that is a clean area where I do all my resin work. So almost like you're, glassing a surfboard or something. I just have to have a separate space for it. And I do all my resin and kind of have like I like to call it a waterfall effect, where the resin just bends right over the edge of the wood. So you kind of get this nice rounded edge on them. And then after that, I just, 2 coats of resin, and then I finish the backs on them, and they're really ready to hang. So
yeah. How do you like, you have a rooster fish, for example, right? How do you cut that intricately so that those pectoral fins or the dorsal fins are so perfect? Like, what kind of saw are you using? Are you using like hand tools and a band saw? Like, how does that work? I'm really interested in that.
Yes, I've tried a lot of different kinds of saws, but the saw I started with was just a jigsaw, and I still use that for kind of the longer cuts. And then for something like the fins on the rooster fish, the dorsal fin specifically, I use a scroll saw, which I love. I love the scroll saw, and that just really lets me, do small intricate cuts. And I think of those fins often. Hogfish is another species. There's certain fish that are really challenging. It's not even the cutting that's necessarily the most challenging part. the shipping, honestly, that's a whole nother thing that I've had to figure out that I never even considered. But shipping things is, I have to create kind of a custom, box for each piece, and you're still just kind of keeping your fingers crossed, honestly. And most of my customers are all over the country, and I'm shipping internationally. So
where's the furthest country that you ship to?
Actually, I've shipped. I was telling a buddy recently and all through Instagram. But I've been shipping to Dubai a lot. I didn't know that Dubai, was the big fishing culture, but it is.
They do.
And,
they've got a lot of fishermen over there.
A lot of fish,
spear fishermen too. I think it's a big community over there.
Yep, a lot both. Yeah, rod and reel and spear fishermen. But I've been shipping this past year, especially. A lot of my work has been going to Dubai, Kuwait, and that part of the world. So that's cool. I mean, I honestly don't sell much work locally. I ship. So
have you ever had a experience where something broke when you were shipping it, and then you had to like either refund somebody or redo the whole piece?
Oh yeah. I mean, not often. I mean, now I have, when I was going through trial and error, just in the beginning, I was honestly breaking pieces quite often, and I'd pay the price for it, and I'd just make a new one for them.
Yep.
But now my packaging is pretty bomb-proof, and I just realized that the shipping carriers, once it's in their hands, you just really need to make sure that you have something that's totally bomb-proof. So
yeah. Last question before we move on to Haynes. How many pieces at this point would you say that you produce per week? On average,
honestly, not
average, necessarily the holiday season, just like on an average week, how many pieces is Dylan making?
I would say on an average week, I do about 5 pieces, and that would be all just up until the point where I pour resin, because I typically pour resin in batches, but probably 5. Working full days, I can generally get about 5 pieces. That's ready great. To go.
What's been your favorite piece so far?
Favorite piece? I did a tarpon recently that was, I just love it. Tarpon, I'm fascinated by tarpon, and I just think that from an artist's perspective, they're such an interesting fish, and there's just trying to, something I've been working on for a while are highlights. So it's just a fun fish to play with highlights, and they're so reflective, and
have you caught one?
Are just amazing. I haven't. No, I this might be, my first year pursuing them. I've got a couple trips down that way lined up, so down south. So
yeah, I mean, I'm sure some of these captains would be happy to trade you a piece of your artwork for a trip. I mean, I know I would be.
Well, it's funny. Yeah, I would be thrilled. I would be thrilled. And that's another cool thing that's come out of all of this is, I know I'm getting away from your question a little bit, but trade, and I'm sure, the other artists on the show too would have had experiences where, I've been fortunate to have some experiences that there's no way I'd be able to afford if I wasn't able to do a trade. So artwork is just a great way to connect with people. And yeah.
Okay. Very, very last question, Dylan. And I'm sorry, Haynes, be right with you, but I need to know, what is the biggest piece that you've created since that Wahoo?
The biggest piece, which I'd love to, if anybody's listening, I'd love another opportunity to do something like this, but I did a 11-foot great white shark, and that was down in a gallery in Massachusetts for a while, and it's sold. So I don't know where it is, but it's in somebody has a 11-foot great white in their house. So
oh man, you don't even know who has it? That's crazy.
I don't know.
How long did that one take?
So That one took probably 3 days of burning, I think. That one, it was definitely more time consuming. And I actually built it in two pieces with a piano hinge on the backside, so you could fold it in half.
Wow.
But then once it came together, you really, the seam was kind of hard to pick up, and it was cool because you could transport it, but then you could, once it was laying flat on the wall, you didn't even know it was two pieces. So
That's amazing. Maybe I'll start saving and get a 12-foot great white for my wall, and we'll see what my
just
fiance
let me
says
know.
about
Just
that.
let me know when the time's right.
But thank you, Dylan. We'll come back to you when everybody jumps in for the round table. I'd like to move on to Haynes from Blue Water Copperworks. Haynes, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing great, thank you.
You're down in North Carolina, right?
Yes, sir.
How's the weather down there today?
Oh, I was hoping you weren't going to ask. I was going to try to stay positive the whole time. But, been a little rough early winter for us. We had a 22-inch snow a few weeks ago, and seems like it's been raining off and on since then. And had 5 inches of rain last night, and three or four more forecasted. So not exactly ideal fishing conditions.
And you had that big, that really big hurricane too, right?
Yeah, I'm inland. I used to live on the coast for a good while, and that's where I started the business. And I, like these other guys, realized that the internet was such a great tool, and you could basically live where you want and do what you want, and as long as the shipping trucks are coming close, then you can stay in business. And so I moved up to the mountains about 8 years ago, and live in a little mountain town up here, and really enjoying it. I've been a mountain biker for about 30 years, and kind of hard to pursue that sport at the coast.
Yeah, I hear you. So how did you get into fishing?
Well, I didn't really come from a huge fishing family. I recall fishing with my dad a couple times, but it was always a pastime that I pursued as a young kid to kind of, I think, originally to get away from my sisters. But, and just loved being around the natural environment, the wilderness of the ocean, and interacting with the inhabitants there, and, the old, fishing with little shrimp and whatever. As a kid, you never really know what you're going to catch when you're on the rocks, and it's always fun to examine them. And
all those species down there love shrimp, so you never know what you'll hook into with that as bait.
Yeah, that's right. That's a pretty solid choice there. But so I just continued to do it throughout my life as it progressed, and wherever I was, I would always have a rod and reel with me, and I would stop on the side of the road, fish a little section of stream, or find a jetty out in the ocean and walk out on it or whatever. So it was just always a pastime of mine that really gave me some, quiet time, some time to reflect, and, just like I said, the enjoyment of interacting with the inhabitants of those, the waters is always just intriguing.
Yeah. So now that you're up in the mountains, you do a lot of fly fishing or freshwater fishing, or?
Yeah, I'm not a very good fly fisherman. I'd probably be better at it out west where there's bigger water and open spaces. I tend to catch more trees than I do fish when I fly fish. So,
gotcha.
I've definitely gotten into more freshwater fishing because that's where I live now. But my passion is marine related fishing, and I still get to the coast quite often and fish some big tournaments in the summertime. And, I just really enjoy getting offshore into the Gulf Stream and catching those wahoos like you like.
Oh, yeah.
The billfish as well. And, that's the core part of my business is still with the marine fishing industry, trophies for big marlin and sailfish tournaments and things like that.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about that. How did you get into, copper work in terms of a form of fish art?
Well, I'll take you back a little bit before I got into doing this. I grew up in a family that was very art oriented. Both my parents were hobby crafts folks, and enjoyed fine art craft. And I got exposed to that as a kid, and took some classes and learned a little bit, but again, never really thought too much of it being a career option. I graduated from college, and unlike a lot of my friends that went to work for the bank or went back to school for a MBA or law degree or something, my parents asked me what I wanted to do, and I said, well, I'm moving to the Florida Keys. So I went down there and worked on a fishing boat, and I just really got smitten with the whole offshore scene, and really enjoyed that. But continued quest for about 12 years to do some traveling. Spent a lot of time in Alaska, good bit of time in New Zealand, and then ended up in Hawaii, and did a lot of kayak fishing, and there had a little kayak tour company, and from there I moved to Colorado, got into some trout there, and owned the restaurant, and learned my lesson there. And when I sold my restaurant, I moved back to North Carolina and didn't really know what I was going to do. So I just was piddling around doing a lot of fishing, and met a guy who had a metal shop, and I began to kind of work with him on some projects. He did a lot of sort of industrial bending and commercial work, which was not terribly exciting, but he had a huge pile of copper in the back of the shop. And I told him, I was like, look, can I play with some of this and, try to learn some joining techniques and things like that. And he said, sure. So that's kind of where it started. And, the first thing I wanted to make was a fish. And so I just began to pound on this thing. And, luckily a flounder, or as you guys call a fluke up there, is a pretty ugly fish. So it was easy to make an ugly fish. And I just began to really get intrigued with the process and the metal itself. Copper is a wonderful, friendly metal, if you will. It allows you to do some things with hand tools that other metals will not.
So are you heating it up before you're hammering it, or is it just like you take a piece of copper and then you're gonna use tools like a hammer and whatnot to form it into that fish shape?
Well, the annealing process, as you're referring to, is necessary on some pieces.
What process? Sorry, I didn't catch the word.
Well, it's annealing.
Kneeling?
And that is annealing, and it's basically you're heating the metal to a red glow, and that's changing the molecular structure of the copper, and it makes it soft. And that's the same principles that a blacksmith does when he puts his iron into the fire.
Okay.
So it's a work-hardened metal. So when you heat it and it gets soft, then you start to hammer on it and it becomes hard again. So that process, depending on the species and the anatomical shape of the body, there is some required annealing in there. But I work with, it's called soft copper, but it's a pre-annealed copper, and it's generally used for roofing applications. But it allows me to work straight from the raw material almost to the finished material without having to anneal it, unless it's one of these species I was referring to. So, generally, my piece is, starts as a flat piece of copper, and then I will hand draw the fish outline on it, and then all my fish are cut out with hand shears. So I don't use any CNC machine or any automated system. It's all done with hand tools. The only power tool I use is a drill to cut the eye socket out. Everything else is done with chisels and a variety of tools, some of which I've made. But yes, the copper, I have to use clean copper. I can't really find recycled copper because it typically has dents and scratches and things that you can't avoid.
Mm-hmm.
When you're trying to get a polished piece.
So what would you say has been your most challenging piece of work to date,
Well,
and why?
I'd have to say I made a trophy, a perpetual trophy, which is an annual, the winner of the annual tournament will get their name on it and so forth. And it is, it's about a 6 foot tall shark trophy that's in the lobby of the Montauk Yacht Club up in New York.
Oh wow.
And it has a 36-inch copper bowl, and 3 species of sharks are coming out of the bowl, and it's a thresher, a mako, and a blue. And the sharks themselves are probably 4 or 5 feet. And then it's all set on a 2-tiered wooden base that's probably 40 inches wide at the base.
How long did that
was
one
very
take?
challenging. What'd you say?
How long did that take to make that one?
All in probably 2 months. I think I folded some other work in there so I could keep the cash flow going because
Yeah, I hear
just got to keep things moving. But it was challenging to piece it all together and sort of design it so that it could be taken apart and reassembled because I needed to get it up there and that wasn't going to be shipped anyway. So they drove down and picked it up in a couple pieces, and then they flew me up there and I assembled it.
I
Actually,
noticed
it was part of the tournament.
Got you. And it's still up there now, right?
I assume it is.
Yeah, it's
I had
gotta
a friend that. Yeah, I can't imagine they've moved it.
No, I'll be in Montauk this spring. I'm definitely gonna try to check it out and see it. I'll send you a picture.
Well, let me know what condition it's in. It may need a little polishing or dusting. I like to know.
Gotcha. So I think oh yeah, there was one other question I had for you. I noticed that on your Instagram page, a lot of the fish have colors added to them. How do you add those colors to them?
Yeah. Well, thanks for asking that because honestly, I really feel like that is where my art lies in my work. The fabrication of the fish is a tactile process that it's definitely distinct steps, and you could actually teach somebody to do that in a short period of time. The coloration that I get from the copper is a process I'll call flame painting, for lack of better terms, but essentially all those colors that you see live in the copper, and I am coaxing them out with flame, and they live at different stratifications in the copper, so the colors will come out in a series, but you have to anticipate the color change and be gone with the flame before the color gets to where you want it to be. And that is a true test in patience and understanding of the amount of heat you're applying, the distance you're away from it, and then there are variables such as the atmospheric conditions, the temperature of the room, barometric pressure. All those things interact with the two gases that I'm burning, and so I'll adjust the acetylene and oxygen to create a different focus flame out of the torch. And that will allow me to do the nuances of the fish, the stripes, the dots, the line of demarcation, that sort of thing. So, I can give the fish some realism with that, but it also has a very interpretive side to it too. And I just try to really make sure that, it's a pleasing piece to the eye, not necessarily exactly as the fish would look out of the ocean, because I just don't have that liberty with hammers and chisels and fire.
Yeah.
But the colors are really fun to play with, and it's truly, like I say, where the art in what I do lies is because that's something that you can kind of only only achieve a level of success with after multiple years of practicing.
So would you say that there's definitely an element of trial and error when you're trying to get out certain colors on the copper?
Absolutely. I mean, I have clients that call and say, "Hey, I want, I saw something on your website. I want one, exactly like that." And I have to back them up and tell them a little bit about the process and let them know that I'll head that direction. But each one is individual, and the conditions are always changing, and there's absolutely no way to make two exactly the same.
And I'm going to actually use that to segue into the discussion with all of the artists that are on right now because, um, you know, Dylan doesn't make one piece that's the same as any others. You don't make one piece that's the same as any others. Peter doesn't. I mean, he can, right, Pete? Like you could take something and make copies of it, but usually you're coming up with new stuff all the time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that definitely adds to the value of the product that all of you are putting out is that, whatever you get from one of these artists is a one of one. There's not any others like them on the planet. You got one and it's yours and nobody else could ever have the same thing. And I think that's pretty cool, especially as someone who has a clothing line with the fishing club, because what I like to do is put out all limited edition clothing because once it's gone, and it kind of makes the consumer feel better about the fact that they spent money on something that not everybody is going to have access to.
Yeah. I don't like to do prints of artwork. If I do prints, I do screen prints. That's like in a unique style with layers of stenciled spray paint in between and something that has archival value, and that's a unique piece, and not just like a computer printout.
Yeah. Shout out
And
to Capital.
Yeah, my friends run a screen print studio. Luckily, I get space there to print my stuff because I have no idea how I will be able to afford all that equipment they have.
Yeah.
And yeah, and with you guys, it's even more a one-off, right?
Yeah, I think that definitely. I'm sorry, Dylan. I was just going to say that it's very important for me. I mean, a lot of times I'm making trophies for a tournament, and they'll have 5 trophies of the same size and same style. So I'll have to create a very close resemblance on the crafting of the fish. But when it comes to the coloring, that's where you have no control to make anything exact. So there'll be 4 sailfish trophies sitting there, and they'll all sort of look the same to your eye until you go and analyze each one. So yeah, and I'm probably sure it's the same with Dylan, is that you just can't ever get the exact same thing.
Yeah, Dylan, do you ever have people that are like, "Hey, I want the exact same thing you just did for that guy"?
Yeah, I mean, I do, but it's pretty much exactly like Haynes was saying. I mean, it's just you got to kind of. I think some people you just need to shed some light on the actual process for them, and kind of backtrack a little bit, because people definitely sometimes come in and they just want like they send you a picture of one that you did in the past and they say I want that, and then you have to just kind of rein things in a little bit and just kind of explain your process, and that each one is a little different.
And for the most part, people get that.
Yeah, people are so understanding. I mean, they just don't. I wouldn't know. If I wasn't the one creating these every day, I would have no idea. And I love it when people ask questions, because the more informed they are.
I think it adds value. They like to be part of the process in some way, and their questions and whatever are sort of creating a value to them as the consumer. They want to feel like they've got a connection with the artist that's making the work.
Let me ask you guys
Yeah,
this. Oh, sorry, Pete. What were you gonna say?
No, I'm actually amazed that I've never had a client that I hated working for. And being a commercial artist, I've like as a graphic designer, I've had people that I just wanted to shoot in the head after working with them. And with all the people that I've been working with just doing fish art, it's been more respectful and understanding. People you have this like common love, and I think makes it easier to work with people.
And I think it's also easier because you're working with fishermen and women, and we notoriously have much more patience than other people because we fish. So I think they get it, you know. What was the question I was about to ask before? Oh yeah, what specifically for Haynes and Dylan? You know, taxidermy has been the main form of capturing your catch and your memory of that catch to hang on your wall for years, you know. And up until I found Dylan, up until I found Blue Water Copperworks and Haynes and some of these other people, like I never even thought outside the box that there might be another way to capture that fish and capture that image as opposed to taxidermy. How do you guys feel about competing with taxidermists and this art of taxidermy that's been around for, you know, I would dare to say it's been around longer than, you know, what you guys have been doing.
Sure.
But at the same time, I feel that, and this is just my opinion, I'm not trying to piss off any taxidermists, but in my opinion, I would much rather have something really cool like a big copper wahoo or a big pyrographic wahoo on my wall than a stuffed whatever they're made out of. What are they made out of, the taxidermy stuff? I don't know, but it doesn't, it's like, it looks real, but, you know, it's not. And the copperworks, you know, the woodworking, it's also not real, but it adds this totally different aspect to the memory of the fish, you know. It's so much, in my opinion, it's so much more original than, you know, you get your measurements on a fish, you send it to the taxidermist with a picture, and they send you something to hang on your wall. And I don't know, I kind of feel like, and I'll probably get some backlash for this, but that's fine. But I kind of feel like, you know, taxidermy is a little bit of something that's starting to get played out a little bit, especially when you have guys like Dylan and Haynes who are doing these super original pieces of artwork that are doing the same thing that, you know, the customer wants from taxidermy, which is just, you know, a physical copy of the fish to remember that catch. So I guess my question to you guys is, how do you feel about that?
Well, I'll jump in first. I'll say that you know what I've seen over the years is I feel like people that buy my work already have a representation of it in a taxidermy form. So that's the beauty of fishermen, is they don't want just one wahoo on the wall. They want, you know, 3 or 4 pieces, and then, you know, we may not be the first choice, but, you know, eventually a Father's Day or a birthday comes along, something that they begin to start collecting handmade work. Now the art of taxidermy has changed tremendously. I collect old skin mounts, which was a true form of art, and how
back when they used to use the actual skin of the fish, right?
Right. And those are just absolute fantastic sculptures.
Definitely.
And,
totally agree.
you know, and there
are
some,
that.
yeah, there are, but very few, and I hope it doesn't die.
You said there's still people that do that?
Yeah.
And
they're unbelievable.
Really?
It's a very lengthy process.
Yeah, I can imagine if you're using the actual skin of it. I mean, I have no idea what goes into that, but
yeah, they use the gills and the head and everything. I mean, it's really truly intricate work, and I hope that craft lives on. But you know, I think there's a variety of just like there are in artists, there's a variety of taxidermists out there, and some people put more time into their work than others.
True.
But I compete directly with them for trophies, and what I always tell a tournament director is that, I'm like, well, it's just a matter of how you want to represent your tournament. Do you want to show, a classy handcrafted piece of work, or do you want a plastic fish? And, that's their choice. I just got to kind of throw that back to them that way.
Yeah. Have you guys ever, experienced any of these taxidermists reaching out to you like, hey, you're kind of encroaching on my business or anything, or no?
No, I mean, I haven't. I mean, I think more than anything, there's a couple skin mount taxidermists that I follow on Instagram and stuff, and honestly, I can't even wrap my head around how they do it.
Yeah.
It's absolutely unbelievable.
We're getting a bit of feedback here. Dylan, are you on speakerphone?
Yeah, are you not able to hear me right now?
Yeah, if you can come on speakerphone, that would help the quality.
Yeah, 1 second. Hold on.
No problem.
I actually look at a lot of taxidermists for reference.
Yeah.
I really enjoy looking at their work and what they do with the fish poses, and I follow a couple of them on Instagram. They've been a great source of inspiration for me, actually.
Yeah.
And that's also that I actually take inspiration from all these traditional fish artists and use them to create new art. I'm really happy that they are around. It helps me greatly in work.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I use all sorts of sources for, depictions of the species, but I can't get the detail that Peter gets, or the taxidermist. So I feel like, everybody's kind of in this boat together, and I find more encouragement than I do discouragement. I think that we all kind of join in and try to share trade secrets and marketing secrets and that sort of thing. And that's kind of where I see everything.
Yeah.
What I enjoy seeing is that there's this new wave of fish art, in my opinion, coming up. That it used to be so boring, fish art. There's it was like oil painting of jumping trout to fly, super realistic. And now there's all these super talented guys, like Wandering Blue Line. Shout out to Wandering Blue Line, who's making woodcuts and prints. So many talented people right now, and thank God for Instagram and social media, so we can follow them.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, I totally agree. And Victor, I was just thinking, and maybe this isn't something that we would talk about right now, but I think probably all three of us also have, I have a list of artists that I really admire that, I follow on Instagram or, in person or whatever. And, if you ever did want to make this like an annual thing or something, I think you'd be able to compile just an unbelievable list of really inspiring artists.
Yeah, I would love to do that. I mean, this is we're going to be calling this, episode something like Fish Art Part 1. This is definitely going to be an ongoing conversation, and I really didn't mean to, if I came across as like, disrespecting taxidermy or anything. I'm not trying to do that. I know it's an art form that's been around for a while.
No, man, you're gonna get angry emails from taxidermists now.
Yeah, I might end up as a piece of taxidermy now.
Your tires are slashed where you walk out.
Yeah, but they got to come find me first in Brooklyn. But anyway, yeah, taxidermy is definitely something that that could be another subject for fish art, because it is fish art, and the guys that are doing it with this actual skin of the fish, I mean that is, I mean, how much more pure of an art form does that get?
Yeah.
So
I'll just add that there are other forms of taxidermy too that are, not, maybe aren't quite as impressive, or there's just a few, there's just a lot of different things out there, but the skin mounts in particular are unbelievable.
So, as three artists that do very original work all across the board, in terms of the stuff that you're putting out, what are some of the, what are some of your contemporaries that you're looking at on Instagram or wherever on the internet? Who are some of your contemporaries that you find inspiration from that, um, push you to maybe to be even better as an artist? Like you see some guy put out a really great piece and you're like, wow, that's amazing. I got to go back to the drawing board and do something cool too. Is there anybody that you'd like to shout out that inspires you?
Jay Keeler. Shout out to Jay Keeler. I'm fortunate to have done an artwork trade off with him, and yeah, I love his work. He has this he does this like zombie death metal hero shots with fish. I can't really explain it. You have to check out the work, but that's one that really inspires me. And I also follow a lot of photographers actually,
Uh
because
huh.
that's also fish art. And I just received this massive file from a photographer that from Daniel Underwater on Instagram, and he sent me a massive source file of underwater shots of a project that he's just been shooting, and that's also very inspiring to me. The underwater photography. I don't know if you guys do this a lot. Look at how the fish are in their environment, and
Absolutely. Well, we know Dylan does because he goes down there with them.
Yeah.
yeah.
Dylan, have you ever done any spearfishing outside of Maine, like down south or anything?
Yeah, I've done a fair amount in Mexico, and started going annually down to North Carolina, which has definitely become one of my. I'm sure Haynes might know a few divers down that way, but it's just it's limitless though. Florida, mostly kind of Caribbean East Coast stuff, but I'm dying to get to the West Coast and go explore some other countries as well. So
Yeah.
So on that note, Dylan, I've got one guy I was going to shout out, an artist that lives in the Keys. His name is Caleb Goins, and he's on it.
love Caleb's work.
Oh, you know Caleb? Okay. Well, you need to. He's actually from basically the town I live in now. But long story, I met him. He was spearfishing for bluegills under the dock in a pond.
Sounds like a true savage.
He's an amazing artist, as you know, but he's also a huge spearfisher. So you need to hook up with him down there.
Yeah, I would just love to connect with him in person. He was going to be one of the artists that I was going to shout out. And another, my kind of all-time favorite fish artist is Amadeo Bachar. I think he's Abachar on Instagram, but I got to give him a little shout out because he's been kind of my totally different style of artwork, totally different. He's primarily watercolor and but just unbelievable. And I've even since high school, I've been amazed by his work. So
Actually, I have to agree with you on that one. I absolutely adore his work.
Yeah, I've seen it as well.
Who is this guy? What's this guy's name and what's his handle?
Amadeo Bachar. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. And his handle is Abachar, Abachar.
I think he's actually also a professor in scientific illustration.
His bio says he's a modern day cave painter. That's cool. Oh yeah, no,
I've got another
some
shout
good
out
stuff.
real quick.
Yeah, shout him out.
There's a couple guys that work in stainless steel, which is if you're a metal worker, you understand that is just incredibly difficult metal to coax into a lifelike figure. And there's a guy in California named Steve Nielsen, and there's a guy in Australia named Nick Ghost, I think, Joofte. And both those guys are just spot on, amazing artists. And then I've got one for Dylan. If he doesn't know about him, is a friend of mine, personal friend of mine that lives in the Keys, named David Worth, Wirth. He's sick carver down there, and so yeah, we're sharing our friends in the industry.
So before we close out, I just want to open up the floor to you three. If you have any questions for one another, now would be the time to ask them.
Well, my questions would be about how do I get more followers on Instagram? I haven't been on there that much, and I understand, enough about it to be dangerous, basically.
Do a giveaway with me.
I just really feel like it's a perfect forum for me, and my work is so visual, and you guys are as well, that I just feel like I need to be getting more end result from Instagram. I mean, I'm getting some people liking some things and a few comments here and there, but I can't say that I've sold a lot of work through there.
I could help you with that, and we could talk offline about that for sure.
Okay.
Me and Dylan and I just did a giveaway together, and I know Dylan wasn't, totally enthralled about the rules that I have for the giveaway, but I understand where you're coming from as an artist, totally, man. We basically, well, I'm not going to break down my formula right now to everybody, but I thought it worked pretty well. I mean, we had 3,500 profile visits in a week. I don't know how your numbers did on that, Dylan, but I know.
Yeah, I was actually very surprised. It was very, very successful in the end, and I would say that that is one of the things that I found on Instagram is collaborating in whatever way, whether it be a giveaway or just like even just in your story or whatever, featuring another artist. You can kind of just, everybody's in it together, and everybody's kind of trying to grow on Instagram together. And
yep.
I've just found that being open and working with other artists to kind of grow both of your followings, or working with Brooklyn Fishing Club, or other accounts that you can kind of team up. Giveaways, I think, have kind of been, I just factored into what I've considered to be my marketing kind of budget, and sure. I think giveaways are a killer way to grow your following. Probably the best way.
And the best thing about the giveaways that I do is that you get the equivalent of, I would say, like a $500 Facebook campaign, and all you really have to do is donate a piece of your work, and you let your followers do the rest, and they promote you, and it works pretty well. But I would definitely say that Peter and Dylan and myself, Haynes, we're kind of new to each other, but we could definitely grow together. But Peter, Dylan, Brooklyn Fishing Club, all of our brands kind of started out in a similar place, and just by working together, being loyal to one another, and just putting out dope art, whether it's on a t-shirt, on a print, whatever it is, and just promoting each other. Like, sometimes I'll see something that Dylan did and just screenshot it and just throw it on my story just because I think it's dope, and same thing with Peter. And
also, it's important to share process.
Yeah.
Because there's, just to get back to the art in this discussion, I think it's so important for people to understand that what we are doing is a craft, and it's not artificial generated crap that's everywhere around us right now.
Yeah.
We put blood, sweat, and tears into our work, and I think people really enjoy seeing that. People like seeing the process, how you work, and it helps them also understand about the value of your work.
Exactly. I mean, you can't just post. I mean, you can, but say Peter, right? You post a beautiful picture of the final draft of a perch or whatever it is, and you try to sell it, right? I mean, people will probably buy it, but if you have a story behind it, you know, like the aspect of the Instagram story where you're showing the process of what went in to the final copy of it, you know, people really get a much better idea for the love that you have for this art, and it's not just something you're just doing to try to, you know, get a PayPal invoice completed or whatever it is. Like, you know, and Dylan, I know you do the same thing. You show different parts of the process of how fish are turning out. I remember with the wahoo that you did for me, you know, you sent me videos of the burning of it. Then you sent me videos of you putting the resin on it and all that. And it just, you know, as a consumer, it made me feel so much more connected to the piece of art and just so much more attracted to it. You know, I mean, you can go on Google and type in fish art and buy a piece and whatever, but what does it really mean to you? You know, if you're buying from an artist who's putting their literally blood, sweat, and tears into a piece of artwork for you, that's totally different than, you know, buying something off the shelf at wherever. So,
that's great feedback. And honestly, I think Peter hit the nail on the head. That is a totally another aspect of it. And I think another thing is kind of once you get past Instagram, having a, you know, and now there's so many templated websites, you know, I haven't, you know, I just think that having something that people land on after Instagram, you know, and they click that link in your bio, and maybe you have a video of yourself doing work, because people don't really look back through your feeds, you know, like days and days and days ago. So you kind of have to have something that lives for a long time. And I think having something on your website that people land on that's either a video or a bunch of photos with descriptions and that they get that connection, you know, that's what people want.
Definitely.
Yeah, I got that tool. I just really need to feel like, you know, my efforts in my post are reaching targets, you know, and, you know, I don't know if it's all right to tag people, you know, and get associations that way. I don't know if that's taboo or if that's accepted. So I'm just kind of learning a little bit.
Haynes, I'm going to call you after, and we're going to get into it because I got some tips. So I'll definitely help you.
Appreciate it.
The last question. Oh yeah, this was it. As established fish artists, you know, you guys have carved out your niches, and you know, you're known nationally, you're known worldwide. You know, what type of advice would you give to an up and coming fish artist who, you know, has a lot of talent and potential, but is just kind of getting started? I mean, what would you, what inspirational words would you impart upon them?
Work hard and be nice to people.
That's actually the motto of my school that I teach at. Work hard, be nice.
Words to live by right there.
It's a pretty good one, right?
You know, it's not going to be easy. Starting out as an artist is hard. Making a living as an artist is hard. But in the end, it's the most satisfying way to live. And believe in yourself. That's it.
Yeah.
Dylan,
I say all those things plus go fishing.
Go fishing, yeah.
Yeah.
Be as connected to the fish as possible, right?
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess I would just go, you know, the one thing I would add is now we do with social media and everything, we live in such a kind of like open, you know, it's open community across, you know, all like between all of these fish artists, and just don't be afraid to reach out. And I still do it all the time. You know, I contact people and, you know, ask questions. People they want to be, we're all in this together, you know, and I think it's just important to not feel isolated and just kind of, you know, if you see something that somebody's doing and, you know, you like whether it's, you know, shipping, you know, I've kind of figured out shipping, you know, together with some other artists because it was so hard for all of us to figure it out.
Yeah.
at first, and just little things like that. Just ask questions
And be nice.
and be nice.
Yeah, I want to do another shout out there to Eric Otten from Germany.
Yes.
I've known him for years now, and I've worked with him, and I showed him how to work on murals, and we also had a lot of talks about art and how to approach stuff, and I love to see this kid developing. And he's so young; he's studying biology right now, and yeah,
So
I love seeing him growing as an artist.
So don't be afraid to take on like a protege or, be a mentor to an up and coming artist. It's nothing but good karma if you do that anyway, right?
That's right.
Yeah, I would say this guy is outshining me already.
Yeah, we'll see about that. But anyway, guys, listen, we got to cut it. We're at time. I really appreciate having all of you on the air. If we could do a quick whip around of Peter, Dylan, and Haynes, if you guys want to just shout out, where to find your art, your website, Instagram handle, now's the time. So Peter, start it off.
PeterPurse.com and Peter Purse on Instagram.
Dylan?
And I would like to add to that, I'm really honored to meet you guys. And I really enjoyed hearing how much things we have in common. Thank you.
Yes. Okay. It's for Haynes. It's bluewatercopperworks.com and at Blue Water Copperworks on Instagram. Also have a Facebook page. And I too appreciate the time here and look forward to following you guys on Instagram and other means, and then also digging into a little bit of who you guys are following and finding some other intriguing artwork out there, because it is amazing what you can discover.
Yeah.
Thank
Dylan?
you to the Brooklyn Fishing Club for including me in this.
No problem, man. Thank you for being here. Appreciate it. Dylan, Bold Coast Burns.
I'm Bold Coast Burns. Everything like Instagram, Facebook, boldcoastburns.com, and I'm just psyched. I really am. Like, it's been really cool to you see glimpses of people through social media and stuff. It's such a cool format to get to know you guys a little bit, and like Peter said, I'm just amazed how much we really do all kind of have in common, and the struggles and the things we're all learning. So, and then Victor, thanks for having me on the show.
No doubt. Very appreciative of you guys calling in. We've got North Carolina on the line, Maine on the line, Peter's in Turkey. So if there was a little feedback in terms of the sound quality on this episode, just understand that we have people calling in from all over the world, and bear with us. Recently, we've gotten to the point where we are, about, after we edit this episode, we'll be about 8 episodes deep. And unfortunately, we've come to the point where we need to start raising money to keep the podcast going. And if you're interested in hearing more of our episodes, we're going to have to ask you for your help. I've started a GoFundMe campaign. It's gofundme.com/BFC podcast. GoFundMe.com/BFC podcast. Even if you could just donate $5, even if you can't donate $5, please just share the link on social media and try to get some people over here, because I really think that we have a lot of quality episodes that we can line up down the line, and we already have a solid amount of quality episodes under our belt. And I just want to keep this going, because every episode, we connect people from different parts of the planet. We talk about different interesting topics that most podcasts wouldn't discuss. And if you enjoy what you hear, please help us keep it going. If you have any questions, email brooklynfishingclub@gmail.com. and give us a follow on Instagram at Brooklyn Fishing Club. Thank you guys so much for
And
joining.
I want to quickly jump in there. Sorry for breaking you up.
It's all right. It
I want to give
happens
you
every episode.
I want to give you a compliment there, man, because I think you're doing a really good job. I have really enjoyed listening to the first couple of podcasts and hearing myself talk, and I now realize how hard it actually is, and I admire you more for doing such a great job.
So does that mean we're better friends now?
No, I'm unfriending you now. Okay?
I miss you, Pete. Wish I could come over to Amsterdam and chill today. But Dylan, I'm looking forward to meeting you in person. Haynes, I'm looking forward to meeting you in person. I'm trying to put together a fish art convention for July where Peter would come, Dylan would come, Haynes would come. All fish artists would be invited. I'll set up the venue and everything. Pretty sure you guys would have to pay for travel. But we have club members that we could put you up with for lodging, and I want to put on a big fish art exhibition in Brooklyn this summer. That is one of my main goals for 2019. So we will continue discussing that offline. And don't be surprised if I tap you guys for a part 2 of fish art, because there's so much going on with fish art that I think we could talk about this for hours. We already went over time, but that's totally fine. So thank you guys. I appreciate you guys so much, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. Take care.
Peace.